And joining me now, your favorite lawyer, Article 3 Project founder, Mike Davis. Mike, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So sorry you had to listen to AOC. It's super painful to hear even one time, but let's talk about this. Tony Bobulinski laid out how the Biden family, including Joe Biden, sold out to China. Now, a lot of this, we already knew. We had some evidence, facts, statements about it. But how did yesterday's hearing kind of move the ball forward, if at all?
Well, it moved it forward in this way that there is now clear evidence that President Biden lied to the American people, and Hunter Biden lied in his sworn testimony to Congress when they claimed that Joe Biden was not involved in this corrupt Biden family business. It's very clear that they were involved. It's very clear that Joe Biden was involved in many different ways, including to help close deals with corrupt Russian funding, to have many discussions with Hunter Biden and his business leaders, to have many discussions with Tony Bobulinski. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming that Joe Biden was involved in this family corruption.
Well, and how about the fact that AOC kept interrupting him? He was trying to answer the questions, and she was just so painfully ignorant, like an embarrassment that she's a congresswoman. I mean, I just don't even understand it. And no one steps in to be like, hello, let him finish the question or say something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, AOC doesn't think that RICO is a RICO conspiracy is a crime. Then does that mean that the case down in Georgia against Trump and 18 co-defendants gets thrown out because they charged a RICO conspiracy down there?
Well, if you were being questioned there, you would have asked her that very important question. And Hunter Biden, of course, no show, shocking. So many Americans are wondering, why wasn't Hunter subpoenaed to appear? What is the explanation for this?
I've heard an explanation. I don't know if it's true. I've heard that there are several, maybe 2 or 3 House Republicans who say that if they are forced to vote on enforcing Hunter Biden's subpoena, they're going to vote for it, but they're going to be very angry, and it's going to lead to a motion to vacate the chair on Speaker Mike Johnson. So maybe that could have something to do with it. But
why would that be?
Because these Republicans, remember, you know this, Kimberly, Democrats play for keeps and they play to win. Republican politicians, particularly in the House of Representatives, tend to be the weakest human beings on the planet. And they're just scared. They're scared of the criticism that they're going to take from the left. And so they're the controlled opposition.
That's pathetic. They're worse than the Democrats. This is the problem. I don't know how these people stay, elected. So, there is clear evidence, compelling evidence, that Joe Biden lied to the American people and that Hunter Biden lied under oath, when he said Joe wasn't involved. Now, Bobulinski and other business partners have the evidence and the actual bank records and shell companies. So the Biden DOJ won't prosecute, but what about state attorney generals?
Yeah, I mean, remember, Big Fannie Willis down in Fulton County, Georgia, is charging a criminal conspiracy under the RICO laws. It sounds like, maybe if the Georgia Attorney General, Chris Carr, had any backbone, maybe he can open a criminal investigation down in Georgia for an obvious conspiracy by these Democrat lawyers, these Democrat operatives, Joe Biden himself, to run an illegal criminal conspiracy against President Trump, his top aides, his lawyers, his supporters, his allies, to interfere in the election and to violate their civil rights. But, that seems like that's never going to happen because the Democrats fight to win and the Republicans tend to be cowards.
Yeah, they just fold the tent, Speaking of the state AGs, there's another big story today because the DOJ is reportedly suing Apple over antitrust violations. Now, you say Republican AGs should join the lawsuit to break up big tech's gatekeeping power. What do we need to know?
This is a very important lawsuit by Jonathan Cantor, who leads the antitrust division at the Justice Department. I would say this: Joe Biden has got almost everything wrong. He's a disaster for this country. The one thing that Joe Biden's actually doing right is his antitrust law enforcement to break up big tech's gatekeeping power over information and commerce. That's Google, Amazon, Facebook and Apple. They are trillion-dollar monopolists. They use their market power to crush competition, shutter small businesses, and cancel conservatives and others with whom they disagree. And it is really important that we use our century-old antitrust laws, which are law enforcement. It's law enforcement. You are targeting these anti-competitive tumors on the free market. Remember, Facebook is calling for industry-wide regulations. These big tech companies like regulations because they're entry barriers to smaller companies. We need to use our antitrust laws. We need to break up big tech. We've already started to do it with Google, with their search monopoly and their online advertising monopoly. A lot of state Republican attorneys general joined the Biden Justice Department's lawsuit there. I think more of these state attorneys general need to join this antitrust lawsuit against Apple.
Okay, so we have a little, a little tweet up there for you. So it's important to understand, how all of this actually intersects, right? So you have big tech's, gatekeeping power, which enables some of the corruption that we have seen in Washington. What other causes of action are there that are plausible against these monopolies?
I think the silver bullet is this antitrust law enforcement, because you can try to go after Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple for discriminating viewpoint discrimination, but they have Section 230 immunity, and that's going to require the House and 60 votes in the Senate and the president to repeal Section 230 or amend it. There's not the political support right now to do that. There is bipartisan support right now to break up these big tech monopolists using our century-old antitrust laws.
Yes.
That's the silver bullet, and that's where we all need to get behind.
Okay. And meanwhile, the most corrupt of them all, appalling individual, Letitia James, is signaling she actually wants to seize Donald Trump's assets. I mean, are we at a point where we're looking at Eighth Amendment violations for cruel and unusual punishment and excessive fines? I mean, isn't this unconstitutional?
It's absolutely unconstitutional what Big Tish is doing in New York. It's outrageous what she's doing. And I want to say to people, if you think you can just go to a Democrat operative judge with his Democrat law clerk and get this bogus fraud judgment against Trump for the non-fraud of paying back sophisticated Wall Street banks in full on time as agreed with interest. This judge ruled before the trial even began. It was not a jury trial. It was a bench trial. There was no jury. This judge ruled before any evidence, before any witnesses or any other evidence. And then now Big Tish is going to go to a Democrat judge and just start taking property like this is a third world Marxist hellhole. Is this Zimbabwe?
Yeah, it is actually. It's actually probably worse at this point than Zimbabwe, And because we're seeing reports, and it was on Newsmax and other things earlier, that she's eyeing Trump Tower. Like, tell us everything you're hearing and what you know.
So what I hope that these New York appellate courts, the appellate division, and maybe even the New York Court of Appeals, which is New York Supreme Court, I hope that these Democrat-appointed judges understand that what's happening here is so much bigger than Donald Trump or one election. If you can do this to Donald Trump, a billionaire former and likely future president of the United States, guess what? Just imagine what they can do to the rest of us. And these businesses are going to pick up and leave New York in droves if these New York appellate courts allow this New York Attorney General Big Tish James and this goofball judge Arthur Engoron to get away with this.
No, it's really outrageous. I mean, who would want to even do business there in New York? I mean, you got to get out of there, I mean, you're really putting your company at jeopardy, and you have a fiduciary duty and responsibility to make sound business judgments. And if this is the environment there, and this is the, pattern and practice of someone wielding, power in such a horrific way, in such a politicized way, good luck. Good luck. It can happen to anyone.
Yeah, this is obviously part of the Democrats' partisan lawfare, their election interference. They think that they're going to get Trump. They're going to destroy him. They couldn't destroy him with the 2 bogus impeachments, the 4 bogus indictments for non-crimes, Jean Carroll's nonsense $100 million defamation lawsuit. She's a partisan nut job. Then you have Big Tish James trying to take away $500 million when Trump paid back these banks in full. He's one of their best customers. They testified in court they'd love to keep doing business with him, but somehow someone was defrauded here. They tried to take Trump off the ballot. The American people need to say hell no to this Democrat lawfare and election interference on November 5th, 2024.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's really bad. So explain, because everyone and their mother is asking, calling me, everybody's talking about it, about the bond. How is this whole situation going to work? Where does it stand? What do you think is going to happen? How should it be handled?
Look, this whole thing, Trump had his constitutional rights violated. He had his due process rights violated by this judge in Big Tish when they just decreed before the trial even began that Trump somehow committed fraud. There's no jury trial. This damages award for like $500 million is clearly unconstitutionally punitive under the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. As you said, Kimberly, generally what happens when you lose at a trial court, you have to put up a bond for whatever the judgment is. It's usually you go to a bondsman, you put up 10% that you're never going to get back, and then you fight this thing on appeal, or you put up the full amounts of the judgment. You don't need to go to a bondsman, and you can maybe get that back. But look, even billionaires don't have $500 million in cash laying around. They have that money invested.
Right, otherwise they wouldn't be billionaires.
Yeah, and other non-liquid assets, right? He's not like, a billionaire is not stupid enough to have $500 million sitting in his checking account, right? Or, if it's Fannie Willis down in Georgia, they don't have cash in their bedroom, in their mattress, like Fannie Willis does. I mean, this is insane that they're doing this. And they're trying to make the process, the punishment, they're trying to punish President Trump for exercising his appellate rights. And they say that Trump is not above the law. They're trying to make Trump below the law.
It's really true. How do you think this is going to play out? Because if he kind of, calls her bluff, can she go ahead and seize something? And then he can try to remove it to federal court to appeal it? Like, what are some of the tactics at play here?
So what I hope happens is the appellate division in New York comes to their senses and understands that this is going to create a legal crisis in New York where businesses are going to leave the state. And if the appellate division doesn't fix this, the Court of Appeals of New York, the state Supreme Court, needs to fix this. And I would say if these Democrat judges in New York don't do this, President Trump should file an emergency petition to the Supreme Court. This is so much bigger than Donald Trump. This is about Americans' due process rights. This is about the American people being able to pick their next president instead of these Democrat prosecutors and lawyers and judges and juries and these Democrat hellholes like New York, D.C., and Atlanta.
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous. All right, I want you to give me your crystal ball for, this whole situation down in Fulton County. Big Fanny, I like when you say that, gets to stay, but her credibility is shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this Fulton County Superior Court Judge, Scott McAfee, if he would have applied the clear facts with the clear law, there's no question she should have been disqualified. Her office should have been disqualified. This case should have been dismissed without prejudice for a new prosecutor to come in who does not have an illegal financial stake in a criminal prosecution. You were a prosecutor, Kimberly.
Yes.
If you had a financial stake in a prosecution, you would be disbarred and probably in prison, right? But
literally.
Because this judge cowed to the political pressure, because he's scared of Fannie Willis's political machine and he faces election here, he tried to split the baby and the baby died, right? So this is not going to work. Trump's appealing this right now. I don't think there's any chance that this case is going to be able to get tried before the election, and President Trump's going to be back in the White House, and then Governor Kemp, who doesn't like Trump, is going to have to decide whether he's going to put his country before his petty political differences with Trump.
What's your prediction there?
I think he's going to back down because President Trump is going to be back in the White House on January 20th, 2025. And guess what? I hope the Trump 47 Justice Department appoints a special counsel to open a criminal investigation on all this Democrat lawfare and election interference. This is clearly a criminal conspiracy to violate Trump's civil rights.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Now, you're continuing to do great work at the Article 3 Project. Tell everyone what you're working on currently and how the American people can help.
Well, we do a couple things that are important. We defend constitutionalist judges, these record number of judges who President Trump appointed to the Supreme Court and the lower courts. They have lifetime tenure. They have pay protection. They're not supposed to care about the politics, but they're still humans. So the Article 3 projects defends them constantly from the left's attack to try to cow them. We oppose Biden's radical judges, and for the last nearly 2 years, we have been the tip of the spear defending President Trump on this unprecedented Republic-ending lawfare and election interference against him. And we are not going to stop until President Trump is back in the White House on January 20th, 2025.
That's right. Never give up. Well, always such a pleasure. Let's see what happens. A lot of different, interesting legal kind of maneuverings, everything behind the scenes. And I just hope, again, that justice, prevails here, because this is a travesty. Once again, thank you, Article 3 Project founder Mike Davis, our favorite lawyer.
Thank you, Kimberly.
So much.